Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rogue Valley Community Television at Southern Oregon University. My name is Pete Belcastro, and welcome to the Real Estate Show. You know, we get together with you once every month here on RVTV with some terrific guests and talk about all sorts of issues facing real estate in Jackson and Josephine counties. Well, here we are. It's February, and already it's an interesting look at what's going on in the market, and we're going to get some great opinions tonight from our guests. So welcome to our show. Joe Brett, who's usually here, is out tonight, so we've got the show. The second half hour, by the way, the Jackson Soil Water Conservation District will be along, and we've got a terrific show about how you manage your rural properties. And you know, every year there's 500 new people who live in rural properties in Jackson and Josephine counties, and managing those lands and being good stewards of land and water is what it's all about. So that'll be coming up in part two. Well, welcome to the show. Gosh, we've got a terrific lineup of people here tonight. Yes, I'll just introduce them quickly. Next to me here is a good guy, is Brad Bennington, who's the CEO of the Homebuilders of Jackson County. How are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's always great to have you. We'll get over here. We're going to go to the other side of the room over here. A newcomer to our show. You know, we've done almost 60 TV shows here at RVTV and almost 6 years as well. And Jeff is here tonight, Jeff Fuhrmeister. Yep. And Jeff is a new principal broker for REMAX Ideal Brokers in Grants Pass, right?
You bet, you bet. We had some shifting going on, and Lee Davidson, that you'll introduce in a second here, was the principal broker in the Grants Pass office, and she has shifted to the larger office now in the Medford area. Yeah. So I filled her shoes, and she's taught me pretty well over the last 3 years of what to do and what not to do. So things are going really well.
And what's interesting about you is that a lot of us, you know, well, some of us, I says, are real estate is a second career like mine. Mm-hmm. But you've been at it all your adult life.
You bet. I actually grew up in Grants Pass. I'm third generation, and there was an old appraiser that worked for the county named George Traherne.
Yeah,
yes, George. You probably remember George.
State Representative George.
There you go. Same in the one. And he and my dad were Masons. And when I got out of college, I went to Linfield. They said, "What's your son going to do?" And the advice was, "Well, go get your appraiser's license, and we'll find you a job somewhere in the state." And sure enough, that's what happened.
That's what started.
It's kind of my career.
And the rest is sort of history. Well, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Pete.
Lee Davidson moved from Grants Pass to Medford, is now in Bob Gervais, who, you know, the owner, and Bob's with us most of the time on these shows. You're kind of like the new Bob.
Okay.
Is that good or bad? I don't know. But anyway, you're like the new broker there. And how are you doing, the principal broker in Grants in Medford now?
I'm doing well. I used to work there, so I knew a lot of the agents, and so it was an easier transition for me to do.
What's the difference between Grants Pass and Medford? I mean, is there a lot of differences in the way the markets run, you think, or are they kind of similar?
Different and similar.
Yeah, everything is.
Yeah,
okay,
I mean,
that's fair enough.
The borderline is very close.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's nice to have you here tonight with us. Guy Giles, who is the sales manager at Summit Funding, is kind of a regular on our shows. And, you know, Guy's been, what do we tell Guy, Brad, all the time? Are interest rates going to go up or down? He gives us his opinions. Okay, there's still...
He's a numbers guy.
Okay,
there you go.
Here we are in February. It's still pretty darn good interest rates.
Yeah, they're sticking around, and I think we're in for another little dip, and I've been saying it for a while, but
even lower.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's because Greece is going to blow up and implode. I don't think. Anyway, I could get into all that really deep, but
so
I don't
really
want to bore everybody with that. Yeah. I think we're going to have a little dip over the next few weeks or months for sure.
Well, I've been saying, you know, you've been hearing me say that everybody was saying interest rates are going to go up. You know, interest rates are going to go up for months. And I was the one I said, I don't think so. It doesn't seem like they are. And then they started going down, which was the craziest thing in the world.
That's what I've been saying. Go back and look at our shows, even from July. I've always been saying that they're not going to go up.
So what, just give me, and I know you don't, I love saying this to him because it puts you on the spot more or less, but give me a range of where they are today. We're here live on February the 10th.
Every time.
Give me a range, I know.
I'm going to end up in the CFPB jail at some point for this. So, I mean, anything on the government stuff to the low, from the low threes to the mid high threes. I mean, everything's going to depend on your credit score. You know, loan to value. There's a ton of variables that go into it. But you know, we're still quoting in the mid high threes to low fours. Again, depending on credit score and how much you have.
And they went up into the mid fours to the 5 range, right? And then they kind of started coming back down.
Yeah, they've started trickling down. And again, it really kind of goes back to it's not that our economy's I mean, even though we had some good numbers come out at the end of the last week that kind of lifted rates up a little bit Friday and yesterday, we're just looking a little bit better than Europe is. So, you know, if they're only getting 0.5% over in Europe and you're getting 1.9 on a 10-year Treasury here, you're going to be a whole lot more apt to, you know, maybe invest your money over here. So it's just, not that we're completely fixed here, but we just look a little bit better than they do over there. So I think there's money flowing in.
Money for now.
Yeah.
I think so, and definitely real estate around here. Again, we got people moving in, so do it before summer.
Well, I hope you're right where they dip, because I've got my variable loan on my house. You know, it comes up this month, and so I hope it goes down again.
There you go.
Because
You should
it's
be
been
in pretty
around
good
that
shape for a while.
2.6% variable for years, and it's just amazing. I'm a lucky person with that.
I often have to go back to the mid '80s during our recession in Oregon. I worked for the
don't do
state.
that.
No, but listen. I worked for the state GI department, and I was a loan rep and appraiser there. And the vets would come in, and they'd say, "Well, look at my interest rate," and they were 4.6 or 4.8 or something like that. They're never going to be there again.
Yeah.
And I'd look at these guys and say, okay, and look where we are now, Guy.
Oh, I know. I've had them come in from that were in the 80s that had 20% loans. 28, I think, was a record that I heard.
28%.
Yeah.
Gosh, I would say my
Yeah.
first house
12
was
is the
my first
most
house was
I know of.
17%
Yeah, it's-
in 1978.
I don't know what this guy's credit was like or what warranted that.
I don't know how
but-
anybody bought a house, but of course houses were cheap. My car, my truck is more than my house was, now.
Yeah.
Anyway, in home building, Brad, what's here in February? By the way, Brad is the CEO of the Homebuilders Association
Yes,
in
I know.
Jackson County,
You bet.
and keeps a track on that like anything. What's the home building world here? Winter seems to be a slow time, but maybe not.
Well, you know, home construction, part of it is it's a demand-based business, but it's also a desire-based business. You know, people can afford to live in one place, but then they say, you know what, we'd really like to live somewhere else. And of course, our market, I think Jeff and Lee would both say that our market here in Southern Oregon is mostly a mover-upper market. It's people that lived in, most of our friends that lived in California, and now they want to come up here. My wife and I live in Jacksonville. We had a nice lunch the other day with 3 ladies who had recently relocated from California, and they thought our property prices up here were just fine. Thank you very much.
Oh, I bet they
I bet they
did.
did.
Yeah.
They really did. So the desire side is very strong. We have a lot of people that want to move to Southern Oregon. The demand part, which is people that are already living here that need homes, you know, part of that's there. But so the good news is that if you are in the business of building new homes, which is what most of our members are, we're a nonprofit, by the way. We don't profit from the building of homes, but we advocate for home building, and we help the home building community and that industry. But we're running out of buildable land. And until more land gets developed. Now, I don't want anybody to panic and think there's a land shortage in Southern Oregon, because that's not the case. But there's quite a few steps that have to happen for that land to be built out to where you can actually build a home on it. And we're behind the curve on that because there wasn't the ability to do that for a while.
For like 5 years.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
nothing was
Right.
built here.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so we're going into a period of time that we're not really sure what it's going to look like on the other end. But what I would tell you is, if you're like our friends that just moved up from California, if you find a piece of property or a house that you like, you better buy it.
That's actually one of the points I wanted to make tonight, was the availability of the lots that we have and how the values of those lots. I know in Josephine County, and Lee probably in Jackson County, when you look at how our values went all the way back down to 2003, and now we're starting this upward curve again. Well, some of those are really good prices right now when you look at your whole
That's
building
right.
package.
Yeah, still are.
You bet.
But they're not going to stay that way, are they?
No, exactly.
Don't do that. What about loans on new construction, new homes, Guy? Is that something that's taking place? Because we're hearing the activity taking place here. Tell us kind of what the status of that is right now in the area.
It's available. I mean, there's 2 different ways you could do that. You could do it in an all-in-one, where you just do one loan, you lock your loan at the beginning, and then it's good all the way through construction, and you just do the one loan. Or we do a 2-step process where you just have kind of an interest-only interim while you're getting the house built, and then you do what's called a takeout. So I think in an environment where rates are going up, you know, it's nice to be able to kind of look at the all-in-one, where you're just looking at the one step, and you don't have to, you know, freak out watching the news every night, wondering what's going to happen at the end. So That's one that I tend to prefer.
And most of the loans are coming that way, but Brad, they're not coming. I mean, you guys know this, where the builders built them and built spec homes and stuff. Is that still happening, or are most of the new construction is what Guy says, where people are, getting the loans themselves? That the individuals are doing that.
I do a lot. I know you probably don't like to name just one, but I do a lot with Hayden Homes, and you can come in with a little deposit, and basically they'll build the house, as long as they're qualified for it, and then you can do 100% financing on some of their properties, the USDA, but generally they'll at least require some sort of money down in order to build the house and just make sure that that person's qualified when it's all done. And you may be able to speak to some of this a little bit. On your end, but I'm doing a lot of them where the builder's building them and then they're just charging them for it.
So there's a lot of
when they're
activity
done.
going on. Yeah, you seeing that too?
Yeah, well, there, and by the way, we like Hayden Homes. They're good members of ours, and so we like them. We like Polish, we like Mahar, we like Whittle Construction.
They're all part of it, aren't
the
they? All part of it.
The Homebuilders Association of Jackson County. We're fortunate. Our members control 70% of the new home construction in Jackson County. So
70%.
our members are very, very active. On the difference between buying a spec home or doing a custom or buying a pre-built in some other way, really it just comes down to, what you're looking for and what's in front of you. If you can find something that's already built or under construction, Hayden has a nice variety of lots to choose from, which not every builder does. So they can, if there's a certain place that you want to live, they can help you with that. And then you can go to Guy and say, okay, I've got the package put together, and he can work with you that way. And if the house is already built, and if you like that house, and one of the other markets that Guy can also help with, it's a very active market, is the remodel market. For instance, let's say you want to live here in Ashland. Ashland is a wonderful place to live, but it's really, really hard to find any property available to actually build on. So you find yourself, you might know about this. You find a house where you like the location, but the house needs some work. Go see Guy, and he'll help you put together a remodeling budget. Talk to one of our members, and we'll put the whole deal together for you.
Yeah, and that's happening too around, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I don't blame people for doing that.
In communities like Ashland and Jacksonville, you almost have to, because there just isn't that much buildable land left available.
Land.
Well,
this is what I'm saying. Jeff just
here
said
we go,
that.
and I'm speaking for Josephine County, obviously, but the builders in Josephine County, which are part of the Home Builders Association over there, they started picking up the lots about 6 months ago.
Started buying lots.
They were buying the lots left and right, and
lots were going for. Give me some examples of what you saw lots for.
Well, let's say anywhere between 38 and 43,000.
Oh my
There's a
gosh.
little bit of a range, okay?
Okay, that's
And
fine,
then
that's
there's
fair.
the extra fees and stuff, but that's kind of like the bare land purchase of in-town stuff.
Okay.
Out in the rural areas, and that's probably the next bargain bit that you're going to see, is that lots that were 5 acres, RR5, rural residential 5-acre minimum lots, they were going for $250,000 at the peak.
Okay.
Now they're listed for $99,900 and selling for slightly less. And my gosh,
Really?
when people find out about this stuff, those things are going to go like hotcakes, and then guess what happens? Everybody's values just go back like this.
That's right.
Everybody goes up.
Yep.
It lifts the boat
And
for
then
everybody.
it helps everybody, helps our economy and on and on.
Well, it's interesting what we learned here tonight. Well, usually when we get into our show, we share with you some of the latest statistical information. We kind of get our conversation going, but we've already got it going, so we almost could bypass this. But we do want to show you because it just kind of tells you what's happening in the market and why it's important to you to see this stuff and understand some of the issues that are going on. So we'll go to our slides and we'll get going. Don't forget, of course, we're on radio every weekend on KMED AM 1440 at 11 o'clock on Saturday and 9 o'clock on Sunday. So we hope you'll join us for our shows. And of course, you can watch our shows at youtube.com/Real Estate Show Oregon. Okay, this is enough for Jackson County. We'll show you Josephine counties in just a minute here. So this is that 3-month period, that the SOMLS comes out with every month. And you can see I had to change from 2014 to 2015 on the stats there. And you can see what's going on here. We're up, Guy, we're up, Brad, you can see these, Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, things are off to an awfully solid start, it would appear. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You're agreeing with me on that? Okay, that's that at 3 months. Let's go, that's existing home sales, 472 of them in Jackson County. New construction in Jackson County. And this has been, again, the reason I want to share this with you is that there were months when we did this thing here, and there was zero here in Jackson
Yes.
County. I know Josephine County was the same way. There was nothing. Look at that, 72 in a 3-month period in the winter. I think is pretty darn good market, and look at the median price, which is up as well. Right?
Right. If you were going to back that slide back up and look at the spread on the pre you don't have to.
Oh,
but-
okay.
but
All right.
if
Okay.
you
Well,
look
we
at-
did anyway. Okay. What?
Okay. So if you look at the spread between 214 and 15 on the median, you're 191.5
Right.
versus 209, so less than $10,000.
Right. On the other one,
On the
look at
existing,
that.
now you're 26. Now you're 218 to 246. So you've jumped up almost $30,000.
What does that mean?
It means, well, Guy and I have talked about this before, and you talked about it before, is that new home construction is still a tremendous bargain when you look at how close you can have a brand new home for really not that much more than a pre-existing home, but market pressures are starting to push it up. Right. And I'm going to tell you right now that the market pressures that are going to push up the cost of new housing are going to really be kicking in here in the near future. So this really great time to buy that we have now for new housing.
You're saying that's going to be supply and demand, correct? Is that what you're saying?
No,
supply and demand thing?
I wish it were supply and demand because it'd be easier to regulate.
Okay.
But when you talk about regulations, system development fees are going up. We have no control over that at all. Those really good economical lots that Jeff was talking about are getting bought out and sold, and they're gone.
Yep.
And so all the new
Really?
lots that are coming in,
Huh?
the EPA has ramped up their requirements for new construction. So all of these factors are going to be
plus
kicking
you've got
in.
the cost of labor and materials added to that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that we do in Josephine County, and you guys probably see the lumber train coming from Roseburg and Swanson and coming down around. Well, we can kind of judge how the economy's doing. And when that train's running 3 times versus hardly once a week 3 years ago, we can tell it's really improved.
More economic activity. And it's one of the things we talk about in our shows about jobs and the economy. You can't sell houses unless you have somebody working to pay for them.
There you go.
And that seems to be, and people moving here. I guess we wonder why, but.
Lee, talk about your phones ringing off the hook.
Well, and they are ringing off the hook. My agents in Medford are all very busy. The office used to be just kind of quiet and dead. Now it's so active, it's like a beehive going on. So,
It doesn't seem to be, there's not a lot of new listings, but there are buyers out there, is what I've experienced. There's a lot of people looking right now and that kind of thing.
it's really a good time to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's.
But we're busy, and
And if you're selling, it might be a good time because there's not a lot out there, as you're
No,
saying. I mean, there
no.
really isn't. I mean, we're going to see they're even down here. We'll find out in a minute, but they're even down. Let's go back to the slides, and then we'll get back out of this thing so we can make sure that we share everything with you. That was new construction that we saw there. Okay, rural property sales. This is Jackson County. This is why I love that they've broken this down for us each month, and we can see here in terms of under 5 acres, 5 acres, up to 10 and 10 and above. The median price of of rural properties, Brad, is higher still than even that of new home construction.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Now, in both counties, it's that way, which is very interesting. So, again, rural sales, Jeff, like you're talking about in terms of lots being picked up and that kind of thing, rural properties are going to be in the same way in both counties. I mean, this is going to be a big thing.
Exactly.
And the price is going to go up, I think. Okay,
And because Land Conservation Development Commission back in '79 put regulations with our 20 and 40-year growth patterns, right?
Yes,
and you
they
guys
did.
do your studies. Well, I think it's about 80 or 82% of Josephine County is all federal government land, let's
it
say.
is.
That's right.
So this rural stuff is only going to
So
grow
we're a
to
little
a
smart.
point, and that's going to stop. And we're pretty much to that point.
It's to that point. See, I didn't
You
know
bet.
that. Okay,
Nope.
okay. All right, let's go back to the slides here, and we'll continue on here. All right. Okay, this is all homes on the market. This is what I was saying. It's down, right around 2%. Then of that, 962. This is another great change, and you can argue one way or another. Of that 962, there's only 35 foreclosed properties on the market and 27 short sale properties offered right now. That has really,
That's a good thing.
That has dropped so much, as you can imagine. Distressed properties, 70 of them in that marketplace, but you can see 85% of our market in Jackson County is back to a normal sale, and that was almost reversed.
It was totally reversed.
2009 when we started our show. Seriously, that's almost a reversal of that. Okay, I just wanted to draw this attention to you. The Homebuilders Association of Jackson County, the Spring Home Show,
Yes.
is coming up on April 24th, 25th, and 26th at the Expo Park. And Brad wants you to sign up now because this is going to be the only home show of the year. They've done 2 of them in the past.
Yep,
and
that's
they're
right.
only doing 1 of them now, and it's going to be on these dates in April, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah, the home show is really, it's a wonderful place for people who are interested in anything to do with their home to meet the actual people that do the work. So cabinets, landscaping, I mean, anything you can imagine, new technology, lots and lots of new technology stuff is going to be there. And we're only going to do 1 this year, so it's really going to be big and it's really going to be a great show. And then in the fall, we're going to do our tour of homes. So instead of having 2 home shows, kind of a big brother, little brother, we're going to have 1 really, really big brother spring home show. And in the fall, we're going to have a tour of homes where people are going to get to go around and go inside brand new homes and just really look around and have a great time.
That is
Wow.
such a great
That
thing
is a
for the
great
public too, because in my career, I figure I've been in over 13,000 homes
Wow.
in all this time.
That's a number.
It's a chunk, but I will go to your home shows and I will see something brand new and I go, wow, I'm going to do that at my house.
Yes.
And that is such a fun thing to do.
Well, it's good to probably get in there a little earlier in the year while these contractors, before they get all geared up and start getting your work
Very
done
busy,
now,
yeah.
because they're going to get slammed, I think, this
You
summer.
think they're going to
Yeah,
get slammed?
yeah. Guy is
Yeah, it is.
absolutely right. One of the things that we've talked about before is the fact, and that we're hoping this will change, but right now we only have about 40% of the workforce available that we had available in 2006.
Whoa.
So we lost 60% here in Southern Oregon. We lost 60% of our construction workforce between 2006 and 2012. So for the contractors that are here, that are in the market, you know, when people, I mean, I get calls from contractors every day. Who can I get to do this? Who can I get to do that? And it's really, it's a balancing act because demand is going up.
Yeah?
Yeah, it is.
That's pretty good. Okay, let's go back to the slides. And don't forget the home show, though. Now, we're going to continue on here and look at Josephine County for a minute. And Jeff, these are probably familiar to Jeff, that 3-month period.
You bet.
Josephine County, I was going to say, Josephine County, if you look at the SOMLS of Jackson and Josephine counties, East Medford is the biggest of all. But Josephine
Yes.
County is number 2. Okay, so as you look at these statistics here, okay.
As far as the decline and then the recovery, it's
yeah.
just popping back up.
Well, it is. It's
Yeah.
increased. Look at that
Yeah.
by quite a bit. Median price and everything are up
You
in
bet.
Josephine County here as well.
Yeah, our market actually started just a little before Christmas. Everybody started getting the phone calls, and
When it started.
then
Yeah.
the relatives were coming in, and then all of a sudden we're thinking we're going to have a couple days off with our family. Well, wrong. We're all working,
Wow.
so things
Yeah.
really
Okay,
popped
well,
open.
That's good to hear.
We used to always take our vacations in December,
December.
January,
Nope.
February, and you can't do that now
No,
because we're
no.
busy.
Yeah.
And I think it reflects on you guys too. Look
Yeah.
at your applications and stuff.
Oh yeah, we've been busy but we didn't really slow down this year at
No.
all.
Oh, with the
We've
refis
been
and
busy.
stuff, yeah.
I don't do refis. I don't have one in my pipeline. I
Okay.
just focus all on purchase business. But yeah, I think that's taking up a lot of the appraisers' time right now.
Probably
which is,
so.
Well, you've said that you've been pretty busy. I mean,
Yeah,
you've got lots of
the-
apps, lots of
Oh my
activity
gosh.
going on.
Yeah, there's a ton of people, and so I don't know. Like I said, there seems like there's more buyers right now than there is places.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Josephine County is definitely a good place to look if you don't want to spend quite as
So when
much
you
in
have the
Medford.
buyers, or when there's more buyers than there are sellers, that is
Economic
the seller's market,
indicator.
doesn't that? Because I mean,
Yeah.
sellers get their price at that point,
right.
more
There
or
you go.
less, and stuff. My question out of the whole thing is that are appraisers keeping up with the market, or are they lagging behind? Because we're seeing all the median prices go up here, right? I mean, we're seeing it go up. But I know in our office, and I don't know if your office as well, and I've had one right now where the appraisals are coming in lower than the agreed upon price.
I think we see that a lot.
Oh, see, that's not.
Yeah, that's not a good thing,
Yeah.
but I do think we see that a lot. And I do think that the appraisers need to pick up and kind of.
The market's changing
Yeah,
again,
the
isn't
market
it?
is
I mean, it
changing
seriously
again.
is, yeah.
Well,
We're seeing that, yeah.
Well, appraisal reform is a topic that we're going to need to look at. I mean, and that's set
so true.
legislatively. So that's
Appraisal reform.
that's a
Love
conversation.
that.
That's
Let's
an
go
interesting
down. Yeah,
comment.
that's good.
Yeah, be-
But
Good, that's good.
Go ahead.
Well, it's, you know, what happened is, and Jeff knows this, what happened is that the rules got a little bit too liberal. We had lenders that were undersecured in their loans, and we know what happened from that. And and then it swung too far the other way.
Exactly.
So now we need to get back toward a workable middle, and I think anybody in the business understands right now it's too far the wrong direction.
Most of the appraisers that I have met down here, and I was an appraiser in Portland for over 20 years, a licensed appraiser, is they're pretty cognizant of what goes on in our local markets. And part of the appraisal's code, their canons, their ethics are to appraise properties that they're familiar with the areas. And part of what Brad's talking about is we had people coming in from different towns,
From
appraising down here.
Roseburg to Ashland, boy,
Exactly.
it's a different market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'll give kudos to the appraisers that we have down here. The hard part is when a house sells a week before you're going to do an appraisal, and you don't have that data yet because it hasn't gone through the records that fast as far as all the criteria that's needed for the appraisal. So if you're a seller or if you're a broker, we try to supply the appraisers, hey, here's a sale last week and you may not know about it yet. And they're pretty receptive about that.
Yeah, I've actually talked to a few appraisers, and I mean, I said, what do you think when they come? And I encourage the real estate agents, go out there, show them your comp, show them why you came up with that value. And the appraisers on our panel are really receptive. You know, they're like, hey, we could miss something, and like you said, it may not hit their data yet. Because all we want is a fair appraisal. You know, I don't want them to come in high. I don't want them to come in low. I just want them to come in with, you know, a good fair appraisal of the house, and it's good.
And when that happens in situations that you find, you're at the loan, you're the lender, and that happens, what's generally the result of that?
Generally the result is I get a call from the listing agent saying, what the hell's wrong with your appraisal? And then I go back and I say, great, show me some comps. And then they usually come back 3 days later and say, well, I got this one in Hawaii, and they give me a couple of weird ones, and then we end up compromising somewhere in the middle. And again, all we do is
So will appraisers change their appraisal if you bring them, or if you talk to them? Is that a possibility? Or
they can. I mean, they're really not out to get anybody. They're just, you know, I think it was the 80s when they said, you guys get to go to jail if you do anything wrong, but then nobody ever enforced it at all. And then when we had this big crash, they put the fear of God in them. And then all of a sudden, like you said, the pendulum swung. They were going too far the other way. And now there's some more common sense coming back to it, but I mean, it happens, and all we do is go for a reconsideration of value, and if the comps are there, then it can happen, absolutely.
Well, the appraisals are kind of like the hidden parts of real estate, aren't they? I mean, they play a big part in it, and that's really the key for a real estate broker. I've learned over the last 8 years is that the art is to get the price of the house to be at the appraisal side, and the two must come together.
And I'm sure,
and that isn't that it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
and you probably have ex-appraisers at the John L. Scott offices, and we do at the REMAX offices, and we try to help the other brokers within our branches. Well, this is the right way to do it, and this is what the appraiser's really looking for.
You guys got ex-appraisers? We just got ex-cons in my side of things. So.
We got to continue our slideshow because we're almost out of time here. I want you to see this part here too before we go. This is new construction, Josephine County. Okay, so it was what we talked about there. And you can see Brad and Jeff in 2014 at this time there were none going on. There were no sales, and there were 4 this time. So that you know, at least that's something because it's been really depressed there for a while.
A couple of our volume builders had pre-solds, and they sold them like in 3 weeks.
Just like that.
All of them, 16, 20 of them. So they're busy.
I think Josephine County is right. You're right. I think the lots, the new construction is just going to boom there for a while.
And Pete, one thing I want to bring your attention to there, that all of us here know, is that you'll see that those medians are all in the low to mid 2s. And the difference, so the floor is maybe 180. I know probably
180,
cheapest 180 is probably the floor. So obviously the tops are still pretty low as well, and that's what you're going to see change. Basically anything north of 350 is kind of getting to be rarefied territory. And as we move forward down the timeline, you're going to see that upper end go way up because the floor isn't going to get any lower, but the top's going to get a lot higher.
We've already seen the increases, and the next group is up $18,000 to $20,000. You're absolutely correct.
Well, and just to look at the rural sales, the median in Josephine County, $220 for some beautiful properties. In Jackson County, it's over $300,000. $100,000 right now, so you can see the difference there. Distressed sales in Josephine County, they're still there, but again, not much.
Yeah,
and now that market is also 80% for regular sales too,
yeah.
Jeff. That's good. That's a good sign.
The last figures I saw was actually a little over 90s regular sales now, so it's good to go.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
Also on all homes in the market, just like in Jackson County, they're down, as Lee was saying, they're down in both counties, but of those on the market, 90% of those are regular sales.
Exactly.
That's pretty darn good,
good
for
sale.
Josephine County. You talk about a change, I guess there's one right there, isn't it? That just shows you exactly what's going on. Well, we're out of time.
There we are.
We gotta go. Anybody got some last words you want to share? Jeff, we'll let you go first.
Wow. Well, it's been a pleasure being on the show.
Yeah.
We'll be back in 2 weeks, and we can continue our conversations.
Yeah, and good luck in your new position at the
Thank
principal
you.
broker at REMAX,
I have to-
Ideal Brokers in Grants Pass.
It's a lot of fun. It really
Well,
is.
it's perfect for you.
Thank you.
I wish you well. Lee, thank you for being here. Good luck to you.
Thank
Lee inherits, many of you remember Larry Frank, who was our good friend, and he came to many of our shows. Larry retired, and Lee has that job.
Actually, Larry is the one who got me to go to Grants Pass
Did
because
he?
I was selling in Medford. Larry
Yeah.
got me to go over there and be PB, and
well, you come full
here I
circle
am
then.
back at-
and
he
how
retired.
and Larry's doing well as well. And
Larry
so
is
good for
doing
him.
well. Yes.
Guy, okay. Lower. Next time we'll see a radio show coming up in a few weeks here, and we'll see if you're
see
you
where
may
we
be
are.
right. You
That
probably
sounds
are right.
good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on the record and say that new home construction in Southern Oregon right now is probably one of the best housing buys on the West Coast.
Okay.
Yep.
That's a good way to start.
I agree with
well,
you.
the market is doing well, so that's a good sign, and we wish you all well. We'll talk to you all soon. Well, we're going to take a quick break and come back. The Jackson Soil Water Conservation District's up with us next. We're going to talking about rural properties. Look at the value you're seeing of rural properties and how they're the top. They're the top in both counties. We're going to talk about how to manage some of those lands when we come back after this.
Draw his plans.
Okay, all right, and welcome back to our show here on RVTV, our live show on February the 10th. I'm Pete Belcastro, and thanks for being with us. Back in November of 2006, voters in Jackson County did something very unique, and they passed a 5-cent property tax levy to support the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. And really it turned out to be the beginning of a kind of a movement across the state for districts like this who were been pawns of commissioners and budgets, finally got some stability in their life, and look at the great things that are being done. All we got to do is look at the JSWCD to tell you that that's true. Randy White's executive director of the whole place, and Randy's with us tonight. Always nice to visit with you, and I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing?
Real good. Real
Yeah?
good. District's going fantastic.
You're off to a great start.
We have
the
great
year.
staff.
And
We have great contractors, and just it's going fantastic.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of stewardship on the ground.
you're and the results are being how can I say it? Noticed more.
We're getting a lot of word of mouth out there, and the phones, just like with the real estate agents,
Yeah.
the phones are ringing off the wall. It's just amazing. Normally this is kind of our quiet time of year where
Yeah.
we can get caught up on grants and
Yeah,
all those
yeah,
kind of things,
yeah.
and they're still out in the field.
Yeah. Well,
right now.
we're going to talk about real properties and the demands that are going to. I mean, it's going to be huge, I think, but we'll see. Angie Boudro is also. Well, Angie used to work for the JSWCD when I first met you a number of years ago. We did a number of shows together. You left and have kind of come back. It's kind of we do that, don't we, in our life? We go, oh, we come back. But what are you doing with them now, Angie?
Well, I am an independent contractor, and one of the groups I contract with is the Soil and Water Conservation District, and it was actually in place before I left, and I think it's been a great thing for both the district and for me. It's provided a lot of continuity on the projects, and I've continued to be able to work with the landowners and the projects I love. So.
Angie was the first person, seriously, who ever told me that I didn't have to have mud on my property, that I could actually do something about that. I could do something with manure and not throw into streams. And
I said it nicely, didn't I?
Yes, and I thought, there's no way that could actually happen. And boy, technology has changed from, I guess, old schools to new schools, which is what Mark Jaffe, who's next to you, really represents. Because Mark Jaffe has joined us. Nice to have you here.
Thanks, Pete.
In your other life, you're
I'm a financial planner.
Financial planner in Ashland. And Mark is also, I know Mark because he's also a member of the Rotary Club of Ashland, of which I have been as well. And so I met you that way, but I didn't know this other part of you, which is you came from, this is my favorite story. You come from Southern California
Right.
to here, and he shows me a picture when he gets here of having baby lambs at his place. Now, you don't do that in Southern California, I assume.
Not too often.
So how did you get up here and do it? What did you do?
My wife and I had a dream that we wanted to come live in the country, and we thought Southern Oregon would be a nice place to do that. Even when we lived in Southern California, we came up and took a couple of classes through the OSU extension on small farms, and got to meet people who were getting interested in pasture management and other things. And everybody I talked to kept saying, "Oh, you got to see what the pasture management class that's offered by the district.
Yeah.
It's the best one around."
Well, I'm like you, when I talk with clients, and especially rural property people, I can't tell you how many times, even today, I talk about the Jackson Soil Water Conservation District, and you need their assistance because I don't have, I don't have that. I can't do that, but I know they do in terms of trees on my property. What can I do with these things, or fire hazards, or watering, whatever. I mean, it's become a great resource, and over I think the years, that's getting. I think more people are becoming aware of that, which is a great thing. So, Randy, the classes that put you now, pasture management, or people think about those things, may not be the most exciting thing in the world, but I can't tell you what a class that would change.
Well, it depends on who you're talking to.
I would disagree.
I get pretty excited about it.
Touche. Very good. But managing pastures and land is really became I know it's a passion of yours, and Charlie Boyer, right, who was with us on a recent radio show, that you guys got together and said, we need to do something about this, and we're going to start this new program,
Well,
right?
yeah, actually, Charlie and I started talking about it, and Charlie was on the board for the district for quite a while.
Yeah.
And part of the time while he was on that board, I was working for for OSU Extension as the range, livestock, and pasture agent. And as part of that, we did classes on pasture management, very general, 3-hour classes. Not that it wasn't well received, but by the time you get done with a 3-hour class, you go out and you have just enough to be dangerous. A little tongue-in-cheek, but really it is. And they really, I felt like we weren't doing them a service because they really didn't have enough.
You just walk out. You're done.
They
The
walk
class is
out
done.
and they're not comfortable enough to go ahead and implement what little they did get in 3 hours. And believe me, with pasture management, in 3 hours, all you're going to do is give them the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah.
And so Charlie and I would talk after those classes and say, what can we do to make this a little bit more detailed? And so we came up with the idea of putting on a 9-week course and doing some tours and getting people out on the ground, and in some cases seeing each other's operations on there. And in 2005, before we got the tax rate limit,
and the recession hit.
right,
Okay.
we were able to get a $25,000 grant from OWEB, from Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board.
That's how it
And,
started. I didn't
and
know
Charlie
that.
and I, we'd be there, you know, he'd be there at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't leave until 11:30 at night, putting together the original coursework. And I think we did a good job, but in some respects, we were way up here when we needed to be way down here. The first course actually could have been a master's level course in pasture management. I mean, we were way too detailed.
Intense, that detail, that into it.
And so we pulled it back.
Well,
and
no
we said,
wonder you
we
stayed
have
up
to
till
be-
11 o'clock at night doing the thing.
Yeah, we had to, you know, look at it and try to streamline it. And then in 2007, I believe Angie came on board. She started teaching a lot of the classes. It helped us also look at it from a perspective of, are we actually giving them things on a practical nature that they can actually go out and implement on the ground? So we did some tweaking on it, and as you know, we've got the tax rate limit. I got to the point where I couldn't spend any more time with
You had to
curriculum
give it up,
development or
didn't you?
teaching.
Yeah.
And so Angie and Charlie took it over, and they've just done a fantastic job with it from that point. And you know, I looked at it, I think it's been now about 8 years, and we've averaged about 22 people per class.
It fills up.
So we're almost 180 people who have gone through and actually have developed plans for their property.
So that's
and
the key
doing
to it, right,
I think we
Randy?
have 27, I
We
think,
have
something like
27.
that this year.
But the key to it is that everybody who takes it actually comes out with a plan for their land, something to do with their property.
At a minimum,
correct?
at least a start for a plan, so that they have
Or
some idea of
starting
where to
or
get
something
started.
with-
and-
okay.
And so that they can do some implementation, and maybe it's just one small project.
Yeah.
And they get comfortable with that, and then they can build on it. and-
Now, do people who take this particular class, do they have to own large parcels of land, or can I have? What if I have like an acre of, you know, in town or something like that? Or tell me who would benefit from doing this?
Anyone that wants to do good stewardship, and again, it's dealing with pastures. And Angie, I want to turn this over to her and talk about what they're doing currently with their. But you know, we're looking at both dry land and for the most part irrigated.
Okay.
But it gets into a whole lot of detail with nutrient management. So if you've got some soils and things that you want to do some improvement with nutrient management, there's enough in this course that allows you to at least get started with a nutrient management program on your property. And so there's something for anybody with this, say, 2 acres up to 2,000 acres.
Okay.
I might mention
All right.
too, somebody who's thinking about buying land needs to take the class
Oh, yeah.
before they buy
Yeah.
the land, right? Because they buy the wrong land otherwise, or potentially land with challenges. And this, we spend a lot of time in the class focusing on what somebody's plan is. And because of that, they can then identify the correct piece of property if they haven't already purchased. If they've
That's a
already
really good
purchased,
point.
of course, we can work with that too.
That's a really good point, and that's where again brokers come into the. I was going to kind of come back to brokers a lot of times, and one of the cool things I might say is that the JSWCD is now going to be offering brokers anyway continuing ed courses on some of these same things that we've been talking about on our shows. I'm excited about that.
Part of that comes back to, you know, I think I've told you this before, but I had a lady that came into the office, just bought 20 acres, was all excited about it. And I said, well, is it irrigated or non-irrigated? Oh, it's irrigated. I've got this little ditch that runs right across the top of it. And I said, well, do you have water rights to that?
Oh, what do you mean
water rights? You know,
Well-
and so there's a lot of things to know before you purchase.
And that's what you're right. And as we see on our statistics, you have 500 of those, a quarter. It's actually a quarter of all real estate sales in both counties are rural sales, rural residential rural sales in that category. So that's like 500 new people every year living in a rural property somewhere, and only 22 are taking a class. I mean, we got something's wrong there, so we need to do it anyway. But that's the mountain that we face in doing this.
And a good number of those people, no offense, Mark, but they're coming from California, and they really don't have a background. Many of them we've had in the class, they never even had a lawn. So to talk about managing 5, 10, 20, even 50 acres is just a whole new ballgame. And we just feel like the principles are so important, and the principles apply the same, whether it's a half acre or we had one person with 32,000 acres. It's the same exact principles. So yeah, it's the same principles though. And so everybody sits side by side and they hear the same things.
So Mark Jaffe, what did you do when you first went in there? So you come up here from Southern California. What did you buy?
What did we buy? Well, we rented for a year and we looked around and we took a lot of classes.
So you did this before, so you bought before, you're just a perfect student for her.
Yes, we did it the strange way, is we actually did the research first and then bought the property. Most people we meet, and that normally would have been me too, would go, I'm going to buy the property first, then I'm going to learn about it.
Yeah, we had so many
that
calls.
Is so true.
I just bought this property, what do I do with it now?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And having the resources of both the OSU Extension Office and the district really made it easy for us to explain to our broker what we were really looking for, and also to explain to ourselves what we were looking for, so we knew that when we found the property, my wife has called it our forever house because she doesn't want to have to move again. It's stressful to move.
So in the end, what did you end up buying? What
we ended up buying a 6-acre property.
6 acres. Okay.
In Talent, Oregon.
In Talent. Okay.
And we are extremely happy with it, and we've been able to implement many of the things that I learned about in the pasture management class.
So you have a plan for your property, is that correct? First of all, was he a good student? That's what I want to know next.
He was.
Did he come to the classes and things like that?
He came to the classes, and truly, it's one thing to take a class, it's another thing to implement. And we have a lot of people that leave and don't take the next step, and Mark's been really good about implementing these principles.
The first class, they suggest that you bring your spouse and or anybody else who's going to be making decisions about the property as far as what's going to happen on the property. And at first it was like, well, do we really want to sit down and spend a lot of time planning? But it was an amazing experience because it really made us talk about it, think about it. It worked so well just in the class that my wife and I, since that very first class long ago, once a month we get together and we have a farm meeting. We have it somewhere off of the farm so that we have 2 teenage sons and no distractions if we're off the farm. But we sit down and we go, okay, what did we want to accomplish by this time? What have we accomplished, and what needs to happen in the next month, in the next quarter, however that goes. And it really helps to keep things on track, because then it becomes small chores. You can go, okay, I can take care of that this month, and I can take care of something else next month, and we'll get to our goal.
It's kind of like running a business. The way Randy has advocated, what I like so much about the Jackson Soil Water Conservation District is that we're not a lock up the land and don't touch it. Is that land can be productive and cared for and taken care of sustainably is what, right? I mean, is that right? What we're looking at here. That's what I get from you guys.
I would argue if it's not being managed, all land is managed. Leaving it alone is a management form, and I would argue in many cases it is not the correct option, at least in the long-term basis.
Absolutely not. And that's what the good part is, that people are getting that message, it seems like.
It goes back to, and I think I've said this just about every time I come here, but I think it's important for people to understand is it's hard to have stewardship without production. You've got to be able to pay for the stewardship. Even if we come in and help you develop a plan, and even if we can help you find some funding to do some initial implementation of those plans, if it's not productive, you're not going to be able to continue that stewardship. And so you have to have production to be able to do the stewardship, and you have to have stewardship to be able to maintain the production. So it goes hand in hand. Can't have one without the other.
We had it in when Charlie Boyer, we were talking with him, who's part of your world. He was saying that the future. Help me here, Angie. I'm going to draw a blank on some of the discussion regarding EFU land. Mark, for example, your 6 acres. Do you try to earn money from your property at all?
We try, and
are you EFU zone?
Ours is EFU zone.
Okay, so you have you have a business going on on your property. Don't you have to have that going? If someone buys property, I mean, I had someone bought 5 acres and they just want to I just want to do nothing with it, but it's an EFU zone. So do they have to do something with those properties to keep the EFU designation, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, if you lose it, you can also be
Your property tax
responsible for property taxes.
is going to go way up.
Well, and you could also, if you haven't been utilizing it that way, I think they can go back and look at back taxes too.
And
If you haven't done that,
the
okay.
sale of a property can also trigger them to go back and examine that.
Oh, yeah.
And that can get very scary, because I know one person who paid, I think it was 5 years of back taxes on a property they just bought at the higher rate. It was very scary. So that's something brokers should also be aware of.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, when you buy an EFU, you have to use EFU. That's
You
why
do.
it's designated that, or it becomes.
Well, and you
I guess
cannot do other activities on there that are non-ag on,
Right.
you know,
On
you
your
can't decide that you want to put up an auto body shop on your EFU property.
You have to
Yeah.
show an
So-
intent to earn an income, and there
Okay.
is some dollar amounts attached to it, and it varies. So, which is why I don't want to go into that. That's really the
Yeah, but you don't have
assessor's
to have
business.
much, but you have to at least be a business.
right, you
is
have to
what
show an
Mark is
intent.
You have to show intent. Is the
Show
thing.
intent, and you're doing that.
We are.
Yeah, and how does that part of it go?
It goes well. We've been selling pastured poultry. We've been selling a little bit of hay. We've been doing a little bit of everything. Some vegetables to local restaurants.
Really?
And it's fun. For us, it's fun. But it keeps you focused on okay, how are we going to do this efficiently? How are we going to make this make sense?
Yeah. Well, good for you. You know, we are a GMO-free county, and that's all of, you know, I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff going on around that, but we are that. We are seeing legalization of marijuana come our way July 1st. We are seeing vineyards pressure on those kinds of things. We are seeing more development. We talked to the home builders, and they're out of lots. They're going to be pressured to have more lots. We're under assault, isn't it? I mean, there's just a lot going on here.
There's a lot of things going on, and you know, for the most part, well, we do stay away from all those issues. We're not a political entity, and we're not a regulatory entity.
Right.
We're out there to help people with their natural resource
But it's
concerns.
changing the way you're going to be doing it. I mean,
But-
someone's going
but
to say,
part of-
we're going to start growing hemp now, you know, in...
Right, but we
people-
can't, and if it's legal, and we can't get into any of those issues, but what we're looking at is, are they doing things out there that are, because it will be an ag commodity,
Yeah.
and it'll fall under the Ag Water Quality Management Area Plans, are the things that they're doing, we have to make sure that they are not contributing to the pollutions of the water of the state. And so that's part of what we can help them with. We can help them with erosion control. We can help them with water quality. We can help them with water quantity. And that's one of the biggest things. I mean, just look at the way this county is growing right now. In 20 more years, there's going to be 35,000 more people in this county.
You know, and
how are you going to deal with
Yeah.
water issues? And that's
look
what we're here for.
What's so cool about this county is exactly what you're doing, Mark Jaffe, is you're selling, you're growing stuff and selling it yourself, and we're seeing our restaurant. We're trying to find people who could grow stuff for us year-round kinds of things. I mean, the demand in our community is really unique, don't you think? In terms of the farm to local food movement, I guess, whatever you want to call that. Isn't that really something here? It's growing too.
There's a strong farm to restaurant
Yeah.
or local market. But one thing I wanted to mention is the pasture management class. In that class, we also talk about the legality of selling some of these things.
Okay.
Because just because you have a product doesn't mean it's legal to sell it
Okay.
to all people. For example, meat, very
Meats.
specific marketing.
The processing part of it is also
Processing,
very regulated.
Yeah.
Even produce is becoming more and more regulated. Egg sales are
Really?
regulated. So we are not regulatory, and the class is not in any way, we're not trying to be regulatory, but we do want people who are going out and buying lands or managing lands to understand what the law
They need
says
to
they
know
can
what's
do.
going on, because we always tell in real estate, it's the biggest investment you're going to make. And say, I've got my property now, like Mark's 6 acres. What
am I gonna do with it?
Well, you were smart because you knew what you could do with it before you finally bought the thing, versus as you
Well,
say, I bought this property, what do I do with it now?
And part of it is, there are a lot of streams in this valley, and there's a lot of homes and properties that are on these streams.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, it's an educational thing for us, but there are county ordinances out there that say what you can and can't do, and there are state ORSs that say what you have to do. And then sometimes those can also be in conflict. And so, part of what we try to do is help the landowners through that process and work with them, and if they need some help going to the county and finding out what the ordinances are, and then explaining and working with the county, because as I said, if I have rural property, I cannot contribute to the pollution of the water of the state. I need to be able to make sure that I'm following the ORSs and still following and working with county ordinances.
And that
so it can get very complicated.
And that can be done, though, in terms
Oh, it can
of
be
not,
done. It's
not putting
been
polluted
done.
water
We do it
back
all
into
the
the
time.
state. We're seeing that, and there's more and more of it. The most interesting story, one of that I've heard, is that people who have taken pastures and have managed them well have been able to go, you're telling me this, Angie, have been able to go without feeding their animals because their pastures are so good and so productive that they can feed them almost year-round, right?
That is correct.
That's amazing.
That is correct. And most people are amazed and quite frankly don't believe us.
But I didn't believe you when I first heard that. I thought,
we can
I
show
can't
you.
believe that. You know,
We can show you.
Yeah.
But it takes planning. It requires a plan being in place, and we suggest once folks have taken the class and gotten these principles under their belt, normally they have to start in August planning for their winter feed. But we did have somebody who took the class, developed a very good plan, and then continued to educate himself. And I believe it was 2 winters ago, he has about 16 cows on I think 12 acres, and he fed 6 bales of hay all winter.
All winter.
I mean that's the total.
The
Sum
total 6 bales of hay for winter.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have 12 cows, and we feed. I mean, there's so much.
I didn't see your name on the roster.
I'm not the land manager. I'm just kind of the silent partner. But we feed a lot of hay, but you know that's the thing.
And it's very
It can
expensive.
be done.
Feed is around 85% of the cost
yeah.
of most operations.
So what have you heard before? We're going to run out of time here, and I always things I get to talk to you about. Whatever happened the last time we heard the WISE project? You know, the water for
Irrigation, streams, and economy.
yes, WISE project. They had a big hearing in Portland. How did that go? Have you ever heard anything
I
about that,
haven't heard
Randy?
much on that yet, but
Okay.
it's one of those deals where I know, talking with Steve, they're moving ahead. They're looking at actually trying to, and Steve could probably correct me if he's here, but within 2 years they hope to be on the ground.
Wow.
Actually
Designing
implementing
and doing
the
it.
project on there.
That
is so exciting. When we get that done, the changes to the on-farm portion and being able to have pressurized systems at every farm in this valley.
It's going to
is
transform
amazing.
agriculture. That's why the pressure on agriculture is going to increase, and more people are going to be wanting
Well,
to do
you
this.
know, even
because
as
of
we
this water
have
thing.
less agriculture, the land that we do have can be, there's so many more options with it, with higher value crops and the types of things that could be grown on there.
Okay,
so.
here's another question. Should we be preparing for the summer? And it's only February. There's no snow in the mountains, not very much. Are we going to go through again last year what we did again, aren't we? I mean,
Yeah, I
is that
think
what
we're
you're
going to see,
preparing for?
and my guess is, you have to remember in the 80s, we had 9 years of drought here. And people kind of forget that. They have a little short-term memory loss. And so, and I think these things are cyclic, and you know, I can't if I could crystal ball, I would, you know, I would
Sure,
be.
you'd be a millionaire.
But
things like
my
that,
guess
but-
is it'll be similar this year, and then my guess is that we'll probably at least see one more year like this, you know, on these situations. So being prepared for it and taking Angie's drought class is very good. Taking some of the other classes that we offer and OSU offers will help prepare folks for that.
Yeah, because it's going to happen again.
And I think it's important people know that they can do things to make their farm more resilient to
Yes.
drought. They absolutely can.
All right, well,
We had a drought last year, and I didn't feed for a month and a half because of the management that's been going on.
Of what you had done. Okay.
For that in a drought year.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
There's a lot of good things came out of doing that, but I hope we don't. Well, we'll see what happens. There was a lot of rain recently, but no snow, so we'll see what happens. And Mark Jaffe, good luck to you. I want to say also, Mark I love Mark's story. So active and stuff in Rotary. Mark is in charge of the Rotary Garden that our club has down on old Ned Schaff's farm down off of Highway 66. And you have raised, I mean, you've literally done that yourself, and thank you for that service. But how many thousands of pounds of food have you given to it?
We do about, on average, about 2,000 pounds of food to the Ashland Emergency Food Bank every year.
That's amazing. JSWCD.org. We're out of time. Have a great week. Thousands of pounds.